Open RAN is one of the most exciting innovations that has come to radio networks in 20 years.
5G standalone will be a technology that helps us to decrease latency times and to decrease the complexity in the network.
And there is quite a lot of cases and needs we can actually support with what we already have implemented and what we have in operation today.
As telcos are going to have the ability to actually do forensics, to be able to do threat detection, threat analytics very much more rapidly than we can do today. So I think that's one of the things that's a really positive part about quantum computing and quantum security in general.
We have the opportunity to bring the cloud experience all the way to the far edge, not just the edge of the telco, but the edge of where we live, where we work.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all in person. Yes. Welcome to the DSP Leaders World Forum 2022. I'm Guy Daniels. I'm sure some of you already know me. I know a lot of you here in this room. I'm Director of Content at TelecomTV, and a long, long time ago, co-founder along with Martin and Sean, who are in this room somewhere. They're out there somewhere still. And I think, speaking for the three of us, and indeed the whole TelecomTV team, we're absolutely thrilled and delighted that you are all here and able to join us. It has been way, way too long since we were all together in person. In fact, we held our last DSP Leaders World Forum 3 years ago in May 2019. That was just before, obviously, the COVID pandemic, and then we had to go online for a couple of years. So thanks for your support for those 2 years. But we're back now in person in the room, but we're still aware that there are still many restrictions, especially ones that can impact physical travel, which is why we are live streaming the sessions over these 2 days on Telecom TV. We may be live streaming now, in which case a big welcome and hello to our online audience. And our online audience, we do want you to contribute, not just those in the room. So please look at the website, send us questions, send Ray and I questions, and please do take part in the polls. And that applies to all of you in the room here as well. Please do take part in the polls, and don't be afraid to raise your hands at any point during this event. It's rather like the car industry. We regard this as a mild hybrid event because that also extends to some of the speakers, as you will see as the sessions continue. Now, I've got some important announcements I do have to get through before we kick things off. You'll be delighted to know that there is no fire drill planned for today. So if you do hear the alarms, then please leave the building, follow the Telecom TV team or any of the hotel staff you can see. Wi-Fi is provided by the hotel. It is surprisingly fast. Hopefully you won't have any problems connecting. Just ask one of us for help if you do, but surely you'll all be using 4G and who knows, maybe even 5G. Refreshments. We've got a morning break and an afternoon break, and of course we've got a lengthy lunch. There's plenty of time for chatting and catching up with colleagues old and new. And we've also, you might have seen, got a fabulous purveyor of fine coffee in the far corner of the room there. Please, please, please use that, but do leave some for Ray and I, otherwise we'll be extremely miffed if there's none left for us. Which brings us to the agenda. Hopefully a graphic will magically appear behind me. Ba-bum. This is our agenda for 2 days. Now, we've broken down our event, so 2 sessions this morning, 2 sessions in the afternoon, and the final 2 sessions tomorrow. All sessions are interactive, and we're going to involve you all at all times, not just the guests on stage. So every about 10, 15 minutes, we'll be coming to you to see if there's any questions. We're not going to leave it all until the end. We're going to get through as many of your thoughts and opinions as we can during the sessions. What else? We're going to be using our old faithful catch boxes, which Alex is holding in the air now and throwing up. Now, this is a very skilled job operating these catch boxes because they actually contain a microphone. Some of you may be familiar with them. We've got specially trained crew to operate those. For now, we've got Alex, though, and Alex will do a good job there. Please, if you've got a question, raise your hand. We'll come to you, but wait for the catch box. That will make its way to you. They are designed to be chucked, but they don't mix particularly well with water and laptops. So please, please, please be a little bit careful there. As I say, we're going to be asking questions every 10 or 15 minutes or so. So wave your hand, get our attention. We'll come to you. And if you could stand up because we're filming, obviously, it'd be good to see you and we can see who's speaking and let us know who you are and where you're from. Now, other things. You'll have noticed the little thing on the table. It's a QR code. With your smartphone, you should be able to scan that and go to the website where you'll find a lot more information about the sessions that are here behind me and also links to information about the speakers. So it's full details of the sessions you'll find there. Also, that'll take you to the polls. So these polls I mentioned, we've got one poll per session. Please, it's a bit of fun, but it also helps us. It helps us get a mood of the industry and where things are going. So please, please, please add your votes to those polls during the day because we will be referring to them during the sessions. Now, eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed some pinball machines at the back of the room there. Well, these are for the charity pinball tournament, the double super jackpot hosted by Neil McRae. We're delighted that Neil McRae is once again supporting us on this. As I say, it's a charity event, so please, please, please make a donation. The charity is the National Autistic Society. Very, very good cause. They were our charity 3 years ago, and they continue to be our charity. Neil is the reigning champion, obviously, because he's a bit of a pinball wizard. So if you fancy your chances against Neil and you think you can topple him from the leaderboard, then please make a contribution, sign up, and we're going to be firing those things up during the breaks and also at the end of today, I believe. Finals will be held tomorrow lunchtime. So we're going to get some finalists together by tomorrow break, and then we'll see who goes home with the trophy. I wonder if it will be Neil again. Now, tonight, we have a special event planned for guests tonight, those who are attending in person. You really won't want to miss that one. More details later this afternoon. We'll keep it a little bit mysterious for now, but a special event indeed. Weather. All my apps say it's another wet spring day here in the UK, but they do say the sun will come out for this evening, which just goes to prove that the sun always shines on TelecomTV. Hey, you promised a bigger laugh than that, Ray. That wasn't staged at all. Okay, last piece of housekeeping. Before I forget, it's rather obvious, but we are streaming this event. We're filming it, so please, please, please be aware. And mobiles, switch to silent, please. No comic ringtones, Simon. Honestly, they're not that funny. Okay, couple of words about the event. You know, heavy stuff. DSP Leaders World Forum 2022. When you can, take a look at our sponsor list and see who's sponsoring this event, because it does amaze me at this list, because it wasn't that long ago that such a makeup of companies would have been sort of unimaginable. And yet here we are, and those are the companies, and all you in the audience, you're the people who are actually moving this industry along. You're the ones who believe in this evolution to DSP. You're the ones who recognize that we do need to make a change. We need to make a break from the past, not because you just want to, but because we have to. And we've been covering this sector, the move towards DSP, digital services provider. We've been covering it for a number of years now, and we totally believe in it, and thankfully, a lot of the industry does too. We're also hearing now about techcos. I have honestly no idea still what a techco actually means, other than a loose description of culture, technology, and business models. But if that's the path you've chosen to take, fantastic, go for it, because whatever route you take, whatever route telcos opt for, we hope that change is done for the right reason to create a more sustainable business, one that's not merely a rebranding exercise. And we're going to hear a lot more about sustainability in one of our sessions later. In fact, it's session 6 in the forum. We're going to hear about that and sustainable businesses. But let's not forget about the tele part of telecommunications either, from the Greek, far off, distance, because basic connectivity might not be so desirable or profitable these days, but certainly in the past couple of years during the pandemic, it's shown the world just how important our networks and services really are and continue to be. And we're going to learn a lot more about that during our first session in just a few minutes' time. I'm going to leave it there for now because I know the time is pressing on. I've got lots of doom and gloom about the current state of the economy, the supply chains, inflation, cost of living, blah, blah, blah. It's horrendous out there. There's so much going on. There's still got the pandemic, which is affecting everyone. Against this backdrop, it's a really tough backdrop, but we are determined to make a change. We are determined to keep moving. We do believe in DSP. We do believe in digital services provision as the future. So we Look forward to having you all contribute to a day and a half of debate and discussion, and let's hopefully we'll raise some questions and get some answers as well. Right, going to wrap this up because it's time for some positive thinking. And we want to facilitate this honest and also an open discussion. And this is one of the reasons we're streaming this. We want this to be an open discussion on the evolution of CSPs. So, without further ado, let me please introduce to the stage my colleague Ray Lemaitre, who is Editorial Director at TelecomTV. It's great to have Ray on the team. And Ray is going to be moderating the first session of the day. So if Ray could come up, along with all the speakers for the first session. If you could all come up now, and we'll get cracking. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, John.
Setting the scene there for us. Thanks very much to Guy for that. So this is the first session of the DSP Leaders World Forum 2022, Telecoms as the engine room of the digital economy. Now, the past couple of years has been challenging and impactful in lots of different ways for everyone individually and as an industry vertical, and for every industry vertical. Now, the one common thread across all of those verticals, of course, has been the accelerated use and adoption of digital and advanced communication services and platforms. So what impact has that had on our industry, and importantly, what needs to happen next? What has our industry learned? And that's what we really want to find out here this morning. So there's an awful lot to talk about. But first, and as Guy mentioned, we have a poll for each session. So let's have a look at the poll that's on the website, and which Guy said you can access through the QR code that's on your table. And for people watching remotely online, you can access this on the TelecomTV website. The question here has multiple answers, and you can choose as many of the relevant answers as you want. Select all of those that are appropriate. And you can see the first question there. I won't read through it. It's on the website now. You can see it on the screen here. So if you're watching online, please vote now. There's the QR code's on the table, and where you can also learn more about the speakers as well on today's opening panel. So get voting, and we'll be coming to the results of this poll, the early results of this poll, towards the end of this session. So without further ado, let's meet our speakers here in the room this morning. So starting from my left, we've got Francis Haysom. He is Principal Analyst at Appledore Research. Then we have Mark Henry, Director of Technology and Business Strategy at BT. Oliver Cantor, Associate Director of Global Products at Verizon. On my right, we have Francesca Serravalle, Emerging Technology Director at Colt Technology. And finally, on my far right, we have Ahmed Hafez, VP of Network Convergence at Deutsche Telekom. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this opening session today. We also have contributions from a couple of guests who weren't able to make it here today. So Louis Fiallo, Vice President of China Telecom Americas, and Mattias Fridström, Vice President and Chief Evangelist from Arelion. They're going to be contributing to the debate, but with some pre-recorded comments. So to start this session properly, I would like to invite Ahmed Hafez from Deutsche Telekom to give our first DSP Leaders address. Ahmed, the podium is yours. Thank you.
I'm trying to put my cheat sheet, sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to be amongst you here. It's really a pleasure to be among these leaders of this industry. And I'm really proud to be in this industry for over 22 years. This industry has changed the lives of people quite dramatically. And we have seen that over the years. And I'll talk about COVID in a few seconds. But just to reflect on, we have been impacting this world in a very positive manner. I know that most of us do not really correlate that quite well because of the sheer amount of people working in this industry. This industry have employed 12 million people directly and 14 million indirect employments. So we might forget that we have an impact on the lives of people, but indeed we have, and in a very, very positive manner. Actually, this industry generates value of over $4.5 trillion in 2021. $4.5 trillion is approximately 5% of the global GDP. $3 trillion. So $3 trillion of $4.5 trillion have been just for improved productivity. This is just generated because we have enabled people to generate or work in a much better manner and work much more effectively. $4.5 trillion is not a small number by far, besides the 26 million people that we employ. So we have to be proud. We have to feel good when we sleep every day that we are generating value for this world. It's not just the job that we're doing a lot that is really, really useful for people. If I just turn on to think just the recent events of COVID, I mean, without having the possibilities that people can work from home, we actually kept at least 30% of the society working as efficient as possible. And actually they realized that this is even more efficient than going to the office, that this will stay, so that they will balance and this will stay. And this is a great achievement. None of us expected to have 30% increase in traffic within a few weeks. And in the same time, our networks in vast majority didn't break, thanks to the good engineering, thanks to the terms we invented, carrier grade, that's 5 nines. Now we are actually harvesting from that. The quality we introduced into different things have actually yielded a lot of value, have kept people connected, have made people much more connected, have made companies realize that actually we can add significant value. What we thought is stagnant is not stagnant, it's growing. And this is actually the other proof point, is that the competition from hyperscalers, OTT players, and many startups is just a proof point that we have a lot of potential. We have a lot to gain. There is a lot of value in this industry. And actually, these challenges have played in our favor, because we shouldn't stay complacent with where we are. We shouldn't feel that we're good. That's fine. We have billions of revenues. This means we're good. We have to always challenge ourselves and change. And actually, what's happening around us from the volume and directions of change warrants transformation. And we have to face that. Yes, there's great value, but if you don't transform, you will be the least gaining from that increased value or potential, which means that we need really to transform our production, how we produce things, how we deliver them, how we act. And here I take us to okay, what do we do then? Together, we're much stronger. And in technology, we should be more collaborative. We should stay together on technology. I mean, the difference between our needs and requirements are really marginal. That wants that we stay together. We line up our requirements. And I take 3 different aspects of that. One is the mainstream standards, where we are all present. We push the mainstream standards, the mandatory parts of the standards. There is also the optional part of the standards. And there is parts that are not really aligned with some standards today, and they require some alliances, some de facto standards, some grouping. And these are the most critical areas that we need to get together on. I go back a little bit into the optional parts of the standards, because this is also, there's something happening there. Most of the suppliers are actually now looking at the standards and implementing only mandatory part of the standards, because they want to prioritize their investments, understandable. But then the optional parts get to be dropped or delayed or set aside. When we actually worked on the standards, when we go into developing these standards, we try to push all parts, and when they're optional, we perceive them as there, inside, but actually not to that extent, which means that we need to look into that from one of 2 angles. Either if there are requirements that we need, we push them to become mandatory, or we line up our demand towards our ecosystem, to generate this ecosystem. And here I will give you one example on fixed mobile convergence, an area that I've been working on for a couple of years, but it's quite interesting. There are 2 topics into this area. One is related to what's so-called ATSSS, or ATSSS. This is access, traffic, steering, splitting, and switching. What does it mean? It's actually the technology that would allow you to hand over or move between fixed and mobile. So, okay, what's wrong about that? It's actually very good technology, but it's optional in the standards. And it requires support in the 5G core and in the terminal. Then, okay, what's the value for the customer? You don't get stuck with Wi-Fi, you move freely, you seamlessly, you can even use both of them simultaneously. We've been talking about access agnostic services for many years. Here it is. But the suppliers are not implementing it unless we create a pull. If we create few pulls here and there, it doesn't work. We need to pull it together. Or we should have put it in the mandatory requirements in the first place. But this is one example that if you go through the details, no one doubts its value to customers, but in the end, suppliers are not really pushing it. We need to push it ourselves. We need to make sure that we have this aggregated demand, and we push for these type of technologies. Another example also on the fixed mobile convergence is 5G wireless wireline convergence architecture. So moving towards controlling the fixed and mobile from the 5G core. The reason for that is very simple. The services are the same. We generate data services, voice services, even messaging. What's the difference between fixed and mobile? At the end, there are two different accesses, but should not be that different in how we deal with them afterwards. This is just one example, and there are much more examples, of course, that we would discuss together. I don't want to eat up a lot of time, but I'm really looking forward for such events, and for this event in particular, to get together to discuss how we resolve these issues, how we become stronger together. And really thank you very much for listening. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ahmed. And before we move on, I just want to see if there's anybody here on the panel that wants to maybe comment on the standards point that Ahmed was making about the de facto standards in particular. Is this something that we all recognize here, that there's much more of this move? Don't wait for the standards that are coming out of the standards bodies in particular, but move forward in kind of almost industrial agreement on stuff. Is that something that's happening?
Yeah, I can make a comment. First of all, I'm right behind you with "we're great," so I want to make lots of "we're great" comments as well, so thank you for that. But yeah, it's always chicken and egg with the standards, of course it is, and as you highlight, I do think there's been a move towards more open source, which is in a sense a way of saying let's collaborate, let's try and do things without standards, if you like, or without necessarily waiting for standards. And I just recognise your comments. We absolutely have to get ahead, define those standards, and persuade our vendor colleagues to implement as much of it as possible. So
yeah. I'd agree on the standards point. I think we'll always struggle to get everything mandatory. And there's good reasons for that, and we have to think about it from a cost point of view. And that's where there's actually your point, Ahmed, about aggregating demand will make a big difference, because for the vendors to invest, they have to believe there's a market there, and very often we find it difficult to get all the features we want. For example, in the ESN network, a lot of those features aren't mandatory. They're optional features that we need to get into the network. And we're a pioneer in this space, so we have to force that. So this point about aggregating the demand for ATSS as well, I think is important.
Yeah. Okay, well, oh sure, Francis.
Right, I think one of the things we do need to consider, particularly in standards, is just the change that the move of the network increasingly from hardware specific to software specific will make a big difference. Software by its very nature is soft. It can change, it is much more malleable. That's not to say that standards aren't important in software, but it is also a view that we can be a lot more adaptable. And a good example of that is if we look at some of the work that, say, Rakuten has done with Open RAN, they have developed ahead of the standard. They've put in standards before. They've got 2 years worth of operation from a non-standard in terms of opening up the RAN. Obviously, they want to ultimately align with that the standard, but it's not a prerequisite that they were exactly aligned with a hardware standard, because it's software. And to some extent, we also need to recognize the sort of total cost of ownership. We need to balance between a kind of, I've done something very specific in order that I can enter a niche, or to take your point, I want to have flexible access. or waiting for the standard. I may develop, I may have costs of that, but I really want to be making an economic argument as to whether I invest ahead of the curve or I wait for the standard.
Yeah, I agree on the point that standard is a foundation. It's really the foundation to enable heterogeneous network and really collaboration across the ecosystem. But historically, we cannot mandate all the features. There are quite a few optional functionality, and there are options as well in terms of architecture. Take, for example, SON, self-organized network. We have a centralized and distributed architecture, and that has, I think, slow down the delivery of a multi-vendor network and has created also vendor lock-in.
Okay. Well, I feel that the topic of open standards and de facto standards and collaboration and getting ahead perhaps of the 3GPP and other standards bodies, I think that'll come back in a few other conversations during the next couple of days. But I'm going to move on now, and if anybody has any questions related to what Ahmed said in his opening address, we can come back to that shortly. So don't be shy to put your hand up at any point. But we've got a couple of a number of talking points that we've prepared for this particular session. So we're going to get into that now. And starting with the all-important KPI in many ways, which perhaps isn't talked about quite so much, and that is perception. The perception of the industry, the perception of the operators in the industry, and how individual companies and also the industry in general is reacting and behaving. So how has the perception of telcos from customers, consumers and governments changed as a result of the past couple of years? If we can start with you, Oliver, and we'll go from this side of the stage and come to the stage. So, Oliver, how do you think things have changed? Is there a more positive view of the industry? Is there a greater realization of what this industry does?
Yeah, I want to, well, what Ahmed said was fantastic, and all I want to do is double down on that and say, of course, we're seen as wonderful these days, and I don't want to be facetious about it. I think it's been useful to us. It's hard to say that when there's been a pandemic and other crises, but it has surfaced a lot of value in what we do as infrastructure providers, frankly. And although the headwinds have been around, we're not fun enough, we're not radical enough, we're not over the top, we don't have enough beanbags and we don't conjure new ideas, but quite like some of our competitors perhaps do. But the reality is that we're I like to say we're the adults in the room, and we even have integrators and consultants coming to us now at Verizon and saying, when we're creating solutions, whether it's 5G or at the edge or in many different new areas with companies and enterprises, we really lack now they don't want a network engineer in the room, they say, or the network guys traditionally, that's where it's seen as, even though we are, but they do want what they call the adult in the room, someone who's going to really understand, and it's engineering, it's resiliency, it's things that are going to last in a sense for more than a couple of cycles, it's upgradability. And then you move into the whole, can it be regulated? Can it be safe? Can it be secure? Can it, all of these things that are inherent in the way that we build networks and have done. Definitely, people are coming back to us and saying, "Yeah, we'd rather like you to provide more infrastructure for us rather than anybody else."
Right. And Mark, do you think that the sense, particularly maybe from government bodies, has changed of the role that companies like the BT and national telcos, and of course the many alternative operators there are, is there a different understanding of the role this plays in the economy, in the national economy?
Yeah, I definitely think there is. I think the past 2 years has led to a recognition of how important networks are to the economy, to the critical national infrastructure. I mean, over time, the utility of networks has gone up, but it's a bit like the frog in the water as the temperature goes up gradually. It doesn't feel it. No one notices. And I think the pandemic reset that in terms of, oh, this is really super important, especially especially when we enabled a whole new way of working, which was available anyway, but the confidence that it works was not there. And I would like to, just whilst we're on this topic, take a moment to recognize a whole bunch of people who maybe didn't get recognized during the pandemic. The key workers in the telco industry, who, particularly our build and operations teams, who went out at risk to themselves when everyone else was told to stay at home, and kept those networks running. So to my colleagues in build and field, we really do appreciate it. So I just thought it was worth mentioning that. But to your government point, it's a double-edged sword for us, because now there's recognition. There always was recognition as critical national infrastructure, but it's on steroids now, and that comes with more regulation. Regulation has a cost, and as cost comes out of our industry, investors are less likely to invest. So we have a challenge at the moment, and we need to see a way through that, and we need a strong regulatory environment that incentivizes investment, and we need to balance those two things. It's critically important, everything we do, but also we need to be able to invest to make sure that it continues to be a fantastic network.
Right. So, I mean, Francis, do you think there's been a big pat on the back for the industry, but without too much actual benefit as a result of being seen as critical infrastructure?
I think that's the fundamental issue. I've been a home worker for 12 years, so it really didn't, in one sense, change a lot for me. And the industry should take a pat on the back for what it was able to do in literally days to completely turn its network on the head. But the reality is, I'm unaware, and admittedly I'm taking it from a small, medium enterprise business point of view, I'm not aware of me spending any more money on telco. I'm aware that we've spent more money on Teams, Zoom, HubSpot, all the things that sit on top that enable our business to operate, but nothing more on my mobile contract, nothing more on my broadband contract, and that's a problem. That this ability to monetize just hasn't been there. And to some extent, we need to recognize also in terms of our ability to react to the pandemic, in some senses, we talk about carrier grade and 5 nines, you could argue that we've massively overinvested and underutilized the major part of the network, and that gave us the headroom to react to a crisis. That's great, don't get me wrong. We're seeing that a lot with other supply chains at the moment, that we've become too lean in them. But the issue is, how do you monetize? How does a regulator understand that overcapacity comes at a cost? And if there's not an ability to monetize it, how long can you sustain it?
I don't think we've over-dimensioned networks. I wouldn't agree with that. We've dimensioned to the service level that provides a good experience to our customers. During the pandemic, we had a huge increase in traffic, but it was time shifted. So the peaks, the evening peaks, the busy hour traffic distribution stayed primarily the same. We had some larger peaks, but they're content peaks, we see them anyway. The doubling in volume the network is dimensioned to the busy hour throughput, so it's not as clear as that to say we'd over-dimensioned. We were dimensioned for the busy hour, but we were able to distribute traffic in time, and that's how we carried all this additional traffic.
Francesca, from a Colt perspective, I mean, I'm sure you saw a lot of reaction in the past couple of years, from enterprises to the changing needs. But to Francis's point, have you seen any change in the economics, the return on investment as a result of this? Has it improved the financials of companies like Colt?
Well, I think the challenge of innovating our business model and finding new emerging revenue is still there, and that's why we have launched innovative partner program, as well as an innovation which is value-led, where we co-innovate and with the enterprise and trying to become relevant for them through position connectivity as part of digital transformation. And we're also looking and moving from becoming a telco, selling digital services thanks to our marketplace and customer portal. But what we have noticed during those 2 years that for us there has been a change in perception. We are seen as critical infrastructure providers because we have connected family, employee, students, but more importantly, we have enabled business continuity. Because enterprise and businesses, in really short time, they had to adapt to the new normal, right? All the workforce went on remote from one day to another. The cloud-based collaboration application, they were skyrocketing, and they need to move some workload into the cloud. And that has created new traffic pattern and the need to upgrade capacity or to create new circuit, and we helped with that. We were proactively monitoring some of the critical circuit of our customer, telling them when they needed to upgrade. We were using our SDN platform to really either spin up a new circuit or even upgrade circuit in a matter of minutes, really. So I think the perception has changed. We also recognize the importance of resilient network, because everything was really, all the services were delivered online. So we have doubled down on digital operation, introducing AI. We introduced SD-WAN for remote access to really enable a secure access from employee working from home. So I think the perception has changed. We saw much more collaboration, the industry coming together to come up with solution for society in a moment of crisis. We collaborated with Zoom for remote education and with Teams and Microsoft to enable digital workplace. So I hope, this momentum of collaboration and synergy will accelerate even post-pandemic. But I agree, the challenge of finding the right business positioning, we know there are mainly 4 pillars: infraco, techco, and application enablement or servco is still there. Where do we want to position? There are still open questions. I'm sure this is the year where we say, this is what I want to be.
Okay. And Ahmed, you heard Francis there say that as an SME, there was, thank goodness for the services that were available, and I'm sure that was felt by everybody. But that SME is not spending any more with the service providers they have here in the UK. What was it like in Germany? Obviously, and as Francesca pointed out, the software tools that have enabled greater management and quicker management of the networks really made a hell of a difference back in 2020, and I'm sure you saw that as well. But have these trends resulted in a different, not only a different shape of the way the network is used, but used in different ways by different peoples and with different results for Deutsche Telekom as a whole?
Actually, I like the points that I heard, but I'm happy that not all SMEs would act the same. so actually, what we see is that two things on the demand. There is an increase in the demand on broadband, and people are actually requesting higher speeds. And you can see that in the adoption of fiber. There is people have the appetite for fiber, and they're willing to pay more for it. On the other hand, on SMEs or enterprises, the needs are transforming, and this is what goes on to SD-WAN and other places. But what the COVID pandemic have left us with is the opportunity and not the challenge, and we need to act on them. And that's why we say we need to transform. You can also have some examples of, as you mentioned about the WebEx and all the nice over-the-top applications. They essentially provide our services. We provide video calls, voice calls, but we were not ready with that. We need to collaborate, work together in order to get in the forefront of that. So we can. This is our core products. Voice is a core product. Video calls have been there since the dawn of 3G, and nobody used them at that time. Maybe we were too early, but we need to transform and change in order to grab the opportunity. It's not going to come for us and say, yeah, you can grab it now. It's not going to happen this way. Things are transforming, and we need to transform to capture this opportunity, definitely. So we need to do something, but the opportunity is there and the demand is there. Oh, we need to tune ourselves to match the demand that's required.
Okay. So
can I just briefly come back on Ahmed? One of the interesting things, and I think that's really the important thing, is how does the telco or the DSP get in front or work in collaboration with the partner like a Zoom, etc. A little bit of personal information, I play in an orchestra. COVID wiped out orchestras because you can't, they are inherently a low latency need service. There was a wonderful advert, I think it was from Vodafone, with Lewis Hamilton, I think Jay Keys jamming on 2 pianos. Great, the 5G can enable this. I would have sold my right arm to have a service like that. Now, the technology is there today, okay? But could you get ahead of the curve? Could you take the opportunity of COVID to have got there? That's what was lacking. And I think that is that idea of, how do I get into an opportunity? How do I work fast? How do I fail or learn from that, rather than saying I've got to wait for this one. So I think we've got challenges. We've also got opportunities, and that's just one example. Unfortunately, the orchestra's back now, so low latency services is no longer required.
I'm sure a couple of members of the orchestra are coming in digitally at some point. So before we kind of move on, I just want to see if there's any questions from the audience at this point based on anything that's been said so far. Yes, we've got one at the very back there. And I think even with the lights in my eyes, with the 2 hands up, and yes, I can see that is, well, I'll let him introduce himself. I'm not going to...
Thank you, Chris Lewis. Thank you, everybody. Probably prompted by the last comment, what does the panel think the fundamental product is that the industry is offering today, given that other people are doing all of those other things? So what is the basic product this industry is delivering?
I'll start, if you like. I think we're offering a data product with quality. And I think that is a differentiator. Like Teams works great at home, but have you tried maintaining a Teams call on the train or on the motorway? It doesn't work great, and there's capacity in networks right now, but if you're in Paddington Station, as I was on our own network when it's busy, on Teams you won't get the uplink you need to carry on. Now you need then to switch to mobile voice, so you get quads, which is just is a guaranteed data bearer to provide that voice service. So for me, the core product is data with quality.
Okay. And I mean, what's the killer service right now that people are looking for? What's the ultimate offer out there for enterprises in particular?
Well, I'll comment on. I mean, at Verizon working with enterprises, of course, we're banging the drum naturally of 5G and MEC type services at the moment, as that's where we're investing heavily. And if you look at new assets or new technologies, then obviously that's a key area that you can differentiate in. Edge and MEC being the distribution of the cloud model, which, the cloud model is in its infancy, and don't worry, we'll help them get there as they distribute into the real world. We'll do the heavy lifting there as well. And 5G at the edge. Now, there it is a lot about collaboration and looking for new ideas. I believe absolutely that it's a quality data that's required, and a secure one. There's no security in the industry, frankly, and apart from if you come to Verizon, of course. I have to say that with my Verizon hat on. But, we're trying hard. There's a market correction, a kind of worldwide correction occurring at the moment in security. But if you want anything that's secure, it has to be local, by and large. It has to be at the edge, it has to be in the real world, it has to be in networks, and it has to be secure. So, but when you get to the edge, it's about working out, what might work, what use case, what kind of smart factory, what kind of smart city, smart X almost, do you want to create? And that is a more high stakes, collaborative, experiment really that we're doing with lots of enterprises around the world. So, that there isn't a killer app in a sense there. There are lots of exciting things around computer vision and stadiums and tons of things we're doing. But, yeah.
Well,
Francesca.
Yes. I think what they need, what enterprise need, it's agility, flexibility, the possibility to provision network services in real time. And they need the digital experiences, so network services need to be cloudified. And also what they need, it's really a different approach, like having a services provider as a partner to help them to really move from a vision to a strategy, bringing a consortium together, identifying use case. And for me, the killer app is enabling new ways of working through, helping them to achieve sustainability through IoT services, and that happens only through collaboration and through an ecosystem play.
Okay, well, I hold that thought because I think the key element to this particular discussion is kind of what needs to happen next and how we can enable that. But at this point, I want to play one of the clips we have from one of our remote participants who can be here today. This is Luis Fiallo from China Telecom Americas. And so if we can play this clip, and I think this will help to segue into our next talking point.
Obviously we had to build the resiliency of a network to be able to continue to support the larger number of people working remotely and being able to communicate, around the world. So for us, that was the first thing. The second thing we started seeing is that there's a massive amount of data being collected and computed and analyzed. And as a service provider, we obviously want to add value to our customers, not only provide them access to the technologies that they want, but also be able to help them with that information and make assist them in getting that information out and being able to do something with it.
Okay, so one of the things that's been absolutely clear over the past couple of years, and pandemic or no pandemic, digital transformation is a term that gets bandied around an awful lot, but we can kind of see it within our own companies and within customers, enterprise customers in particular, and that involves an awful lot of the creation of data, the access of data, the processing of data, and the usage of it. So has digitization really accelerated both within the CSP operations and those of their customers? And are we seeing real evidence that digital adoption within consumer and enterprise sectors is going to continue post-pandemic? Is this a horse that has bolted? So Ahmed, if I can start with you, have you seen a real shift in the way that customers are behaving and acting? And do you see any evidence that they are starting to make use of the data that's always been at their fingertips and maybe they didn't realize that they could benefit from before?
Yes, definitely let's say from consumer and business perspectives, the change that have happened will continue to take place. It is actually on that path and it will not come back. So we are not returning back. So COVID was a turning point rather than just a temporary change. When it comes to digital service providers or CSPs, they definitely take digitalization as a very important transformation direction. So you see softwareization, we already talked about it. Softwareization is key. So becoming a software telco, where we actually abstract from hardware. So disaggregation, how we go into controlling things by software, how we become more agile, more into innovation, how can we bring innovation, how can we absorb innovation from others on top of our platforms, is a key aspect of our strategy and our way forward. That's inevitable. We have to do that, and it's imperative to our success of the future. So this is definitely happening, and we're taking that very serious. The other part that I want to put together with the remote working is remote learning. This has been a fundamental transformation as well. I mean, you see schools are now connected. You see universities, you see much more. So not only the workforce that have benefited that also school, I mean, this is a whole sector, and universities, and we see much more now remote learning and this have kept our society going on, and this is also have dragged a lot of demand, because if you have broadband at home, you need higher speed in order to cope with multiple using the broadband on high speeds to learn and to work and so on. You needed some other things in Wi-Fi to improve that. We needed also to provide services. If we actually can expose APIs in the same manner, so aligned with that, we can create services over the top for ourselves to be consumed with the highest quality, as just said. So all these aspects, we can all put together and create value, but we need to do something. We need to act. We need to transform, work together, collaborate.
So I think a lot of this was probably starting to happen anyway. And I think one of the comments I hear quite often is there's a lot of innovation going on. There's a lot of R&D. But how is the end results of this R&D manifesting itself maybe in products or services that customers, whether they're consumers or enterprises, know about? So, I mean, Francesca, has the service innovation cycle changed in the past couple of years? And the point that Lewis was making about how much data there is and how this is being processed, is this something that can really start to happen now because of a greater embrace by customers, but also by service providers of the cloud platforms that can maybe enable this to happen quicker? Definitely. I think, the COVID has been catalyst of acceleration of digital initiative, both for CSP and enterprise. From Colt perspective, we have accelerated digital initiative. We started back our digital journey in 2016 with SDN and virtualizing digitalized the connectivity and services. And then in 2019, we have introduced NAV to digitalize network services and cloudifying them. And during those 2 years, we have expanded our marketplace. We have added a new SD-WAN vendors to give flexibility of choice, because this is what the customer wanted. We have added cloud gateway to give deployment of cloud migration if they want to go for a multi-cloud strategy. We have added Juniper to offer security as a services. We have accelerated the digital operation with predictive failure and self-optimizing network. And we have defined our data strategy, because it's really important. Even within the CSP, we need to start from the data. We have a big data challenges. We need to break the data silos, and we're leveraging the data pipeline of cloud services through some ETL capability to harmonize the data, to have a unique data model, to exploit the data through their analytics and visualization capability, but also through API to share those data across BU and enable better collaboration. I think this is very key. And we've noticed also some acceleration, some pace of transformation from the enterprises as well. Either because, SI now are priming the connectivity decision, and this is a key signal that, connectivity is now being part of big transformation program through SI. But also, as we do innovation workshop, we notice, especially our manufacturing customer, they are keen to move from a vision phase to a strategy phase. And although maybe the drivers are different, whether it's a sustainability, innovative business model, operational efficiency, productivity, they all want to leverage on digital to introduce real-time process control and intelligent maintenance. So hopefully this pace of transformation will keep accelerating. Yes, and certainly things really did happen quick, especially in the early part of 2020. So I just want to bring in our next clip now, and this is from Mattias Fridström at Arelion, which was formerly a Telia carrier, on that pace of change. So if we can play the Mattias clip, please.
We saw a 3-year digitalization in 3 months when the pandemic started, and I think that has continued. I can see when I look at the traffic towards the cloud that traffic has grown with almost 600-700% compared to what we had before the pandemic. So there are absolutely signs of companies going towards the cloud and therefore moving a lot of their stuff that they typically had in their basement before into the cloud and therefore become more digitalized. So I think there are many, many signs out there. I think companies in general are much more aware of the situation, including ourselves, because I think in many ways, yeah, we knew we stored data in the cloud, but we didn't really know where in the cloud and how we access that really. That we had to investigate now ourselves. And I think companies are in general now much more aware of how they do this and how they can run their applications in the cloud and who is running them for them and how to access them in a smart way and how to access them in a secure way. So I think, yes, absolutely, digitalization is continuing and it's on the top of the agenda of many, many enterprises and CSPs right now.
So in some ways, quite a brave admission there from Mattias. They had data in the cloud, they were doing stuff in the cloud, they didn't know quite what or where it was, but now they do. But has this been the reality? Was it a kind of a reality check, not only for enterprises, but for CSPs and DSPs as well? Did everybody kind of go, okay, now we need to think much more about how we use cloud platforms as well as internal platforms and get a greater grip on it?
I think for enterprises, they are beginning to understand what it is that they're doing. I mean, the adoption of cloud is a bit like, the adoption of large storage units at the edge of town, and storing all your stuff there. You've basically said, I don't need such a big house. I'm going to put all my storage over there. It's okay. I can drive there occasionally and get it. And of course, it's the networks that allow that to happen. But as cloud grows, and we're at its infancy really, cloud computing is great. Hyperscalers are just the first, probably the anomaly at the moment in the way that they're centralized and there's so few of them. They actually are not, in quotes, in the real world. They're not distributed like technologies or economic resources ultimately distribute themselves to where they're needed and where they're most balanced, if you like, economically. So the model for distributing cloud computing is what we're doing at the edge and what we'll continue to do. Companies are just waking up to that and waking up to the fact that the cost of having multiple different cloud providers, especially ones that don't necessarily recognize any standards or that each other exists, means that they're actually building silos again, and that needs to be broken down. And as I like to say, you're welcome, we'll break that down and do that in the networks, because that's what networks are for, connecting islands of compute. So there has been a realization for the telcos or the DSPs or techcos, whatever we're calling ourselves now, the adults in the room, if I can be that facetious. We are adopting those cloud platforms where it makes use and where that commodity is cheapest and most regularly available. So, yeah, we're getting to grips with it as well. But, I think we've moved at a slightly slower pace. 50% of that is because we're slow, and 50% is because we actually know what we're doing.
Right, okay. And again, that's quite a good admission, but probably one that's well recognized within the room as well. And Mark, at BT, obviously there's a constant evolution of the systems and technologies that are enablers for customers. But has there been a greater pace of change within BT itself, and has that been helped by what you've been advancing for customers as well? Are you kind of eating your own dog food as such?
I mean, BT was one of the pioneers of network function virtualization a long time ago, and we now have a live network cloud. We've got active customers on it in our new 4G, 5G core. And this past 2 years hasn't accelerated that program. That was always our plan, and we were just executing on it. So I don't think we would say that we reacted to what we saw in the market and accelerated. We had a plan to intersect those technologies when they were able to be built carrier grade. What we saw with our customers, I would say, and Francis's anecdote is very illustrative of this, that they stopped strategic spend, enterprise customers I'm talking about, stopped strategic spend but then adopted a bunch of remote working technologies, a bunch of over-top services, spend that didn't flow to us, while stopping spend with us to deploy SD-WAN, to deploy to offices that were empty, for example. So I think that is starting to change. I have a very nice slide that shows the data growth trend, and it has a little hump in it in usage for the pandemic, but then the trend has snapped back. We're back in line with what we had predicted in my forecasting team, where we would be 3 or 4 years ago. All forecasts are wrong, but within a tolerance, it's close. So I think it's coming back, and I hope that enterprises take what they've learned in the past 2 years and then apply that. I mean, Oliver's right. We are still very early in cloud technology in general. Gartner says 41% of IT spend will be cloud this year, but that's spend, not the workload. So workloads existing install base is much, much lower. So there's a long way to go in terms of cloud adoption. I would characterize the pandemic as a kind of accelerant for a whole range of industries, but it's not uniformly distributed. It was very much an accelerant in how do we work during a pandemic technologies. Mm-hmm. But in the world of interesting 5G use cases, 5G services, I don't like to talk about use cases really, it hasn't. 4 years ago, Verizon, BT, King's College, and Ericsson did a proof of concept with a remote, ultra-low latency control of a drone for an emergency services kind of application. That was in 2018. We've continued to work on that kind of application. We're working with regulatory on how you can enable a non-line of sight drone using spectrum up to a given height. We're making progress, but we don't have any of those services running. And so for me, I'm trying not to say killer application. The important thing that we can do in the network is provide a high quality, low latency uplink, which we talked about when we had our SA briefing, Ray. That will enable things like a non-line of sight control of a drone, consistent latency with a high quality uplink. And then there's a whole raft of enterprise services that will be built off high quality uplink to deliver video at a good quality to a platform that can perform computer vision and then generate an action for automation and close the loop. Yeah. And the network has to provide a high quality, low, and the control to close the loop to go back has to provide that. So it's got to be high bandwidth, low latency, and have the right kind of quads, which might involve slicing. These are all the things that we're building right now. And those services, they will come, but they are taking longer than we might have anticipated.
Okay, so actually the point you've made there is a ready-made answer for the question that I'm about to ask, which has come in from our remote audience that's watching online. And the question is, beyond being a dumb pipe, what value can digital service providers offer, or should they be offering? And will there be a layering of the industry to create specialization and economies of scale? So I guess the question is here, there's lots of innovation going on within all of the network operators, the traditional telcos. But are some of these emerging services, and particularly enterprise-specific applications and services, will they come from specialist companies again and kind of miss out the telco?
Maybe I could answer quickly on that. Okay, yeah. That's all right. Just to jump in, just to show some examples, we have implemented in stadiums in the US, frictionless ticketing, frictionless queuing systems, frictionless new security measures and health and safety. Southampton Port, we're very proud down in the UK, we've implemented private 5G. You know, that's got the use cases are just exploding down there once the infrastructure's in place. A lot around computer vision, but once you've got that and the network in place, the low latency allows you not to have guys with clipboards, which they have all over the port, you know, monitoring containers, monitoring cars, where they are, what speeds they go, very basic things. But having the computer vision to do that and all the analytics and the algorithms that, of course, learn overnight in the big cloud and but actually act, the control loop and actually act locally. We're offering those, you know, we're actually offering verticalized solutions, lots of manufacturing ones as well in the warehouse or the front of house. Yes, of course we've had to partner and have to find the right players, and we'll pick some right ones, we'll pick some wrong ones, but a lot of these, or less successful, let's say, not through their own fault, probably, you know, through a whole host of reasons. But there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of trials, but a lot of things are actually real and going into service now.
Yeah, but just to add on this, I think even if we decide to play simply on the connectivity layer, this doesn't mean that we are a dumb pipe. We are actually providing intelligent connectivity for all those smart applications to be delivered on. And intelligent connectivity means that the network is fully virtualized, which means it can deliver dynamic SLA, where, you know, network resources and network function can be provisioned on demand and can be changed on demand depending on the real-time traffic requirement that comes from the application layer. We're making our network edge-centric to enable distributed workload, whether this is the application. We know the application can be on-premises, centralized, most likely will be distributed. Similarly, for the security, we will have some security capability on-premises, centralized, something on the edge. The AI as well, we may have the AI training algorithm on the cloud and the enforcement of the edge. So workload will be distributed for all those smart applications across the entire ICT. And we're offering an edge-centric network, all intelligent and AI-driven, to really deliver those smart applications.
Okay. And even if there is a specialization, which there always is, you know, as things advance, you get small companies who come up and who are a little bit ahead, a little bit innovative. Ahmed, I want to ask you, are the traditional existing service providers who already have customer engagement and customer relationships, are the Deutsche Telecoms and the Colts and Verizon and BTs of the world, are they best placed to be the companies that, we heard a lot already about collaboration today, are they best placed to bring these specialist companies together and then take those services en masse to companies out there? Or are we going to see, lots of slicing and dicing around digital services?
Great question. So actually, I believe, yes, we are very trusted partners for many of our customers. At least we see that in various places. The telecom industry is heavily regulated. There are rules that we comply to. They have certain trust into us. And actually, if we can provide the services they ought for, we could actually gain that revenues and sustain our business with them. But the point here, and we have to be honest to ourselves, if we don't provide proper services to their needs, they will go to someone else. Is it interesting for an enterprise or SME to go and grab 6-7 vendors and put a solution together? Not at all. I mean, everyone wants to actually have something packaged, but properly packaged. So we talked about security, we talked about networking, we talked about industrial applications. I mean, all these things come together. And when they come together, who is best positioned to pull all these threads together is us. So we have been into that business for long. So we just need to transform in order to be able to grab it. Become softwareized, collaborate, have APIs. So we need to work on multiple layers. And I want to make a small comment on why things maybe take a little bit of time. Most of us, or all of us, are brown operators. So we have infrastructure in place. We are transforming while keeping all the reliability, services, and everything running. So making this move without disrupting what you have is what takes time. And if we talk about slicing, or we talk about, as example Mark just gave, slicing is across the entire network, from terminals to the depth of the network. So you need to make sure things are properly managed. So you get a service, proper one, not just over the top. Then you can create a lot of value.
Okay.
Ray, yeah, I think one of the important things to the original question, I think the challenge for telco is that telcos are used to kind of delivering a service soup to nuts, effectively. It delivers everything. But increasingly, you've got opportunities in the disaggregation of technology, but you've also got opportunities in terms of the disaggregation of organization, effectively. And at every one of those disaggregation points, there's new data exposed and new opportunity to expose and integrate in a different way. Telco's opportunity to get beyond the dumb pipe is to expose that internal disaggregation. That may still mean the telco delivers everything, but it may also mean that they have the data to understand, actually, I'm not the best deliverer of a core network, or I'm not the best deliverer of a RAN network. In fact, a neutral host may do it better for us. I don't know, but the challenge is to almost think about if all I expose is the kind of black box of telco from end to end, I'm inherently connectivity, dumb pipe or not. If I can expose what's going on inside and give opportunity to others from that disaggregation, then I have opportunity to add value. And you just need to look at things like fintech at the moment. The change in 10 years from integrated POS terminals to something where my local farmer's market can have a little terminal, a phone app, integration. That's where the opportunity, where you start breaking things apart, that's where the opportunity comes, both from data and from opportunity to partnership.
Okay. Yeah, and can I add just something? I think it also depends on the type of vertical. So for example, for finance, we do have in Colt domain expertise. It's really important if a service provider wants to raise the value chain and offer a solution for vertical, you really need to have, consultancy, domain expertise, professional services. So we can do for finance because we have an extranet that bring together the financial ecosystem, the market data providers, the traders, the regulators. But for example, for manufacturing, we're going to rely on SI. And we know that, and we are aware that that's what we want to do because they're better positioned to really understand what the operational requirements are from a customer perspective and translate into, technical requirement. So it really depends on the vertical as well.
Okay, yes. And it's clear there are certain verticals that quite a lot of the service providers are focusing on. I guess it's low-hanging fruit, but also the ones that they understand the most. So in the interest of time, we're going to play the next clip from our external contributor, Lewis, and then go into the next talking point, which is I'm hoping we'll get a few contributions from the show floor because it's all about what needs to happen next. But we're going to take a clip from Lewis now, which is really about the scale of what we're seeing, of the changes we're seeing in the industry. So if we could play this next clip from Lewis Fiallo, please.
Well, let's take a look at some of the metrics, right? By the year 2025, there's expected 42 billion devices being connected, okay? The IP traffic globally right now is exceeding 400 exabytes of traffic, okay? That's a large amount of data, right? And at the same time, we're starting to deploy new technologies that's just going to generate more and more data. An autonomous car in one day will generate 30 million pieces of data, okay? So the beginning of what we're seeing, this digital revolution, transformation is taking place, it's just started, right? Because a lot of these initiatives are just getting started, launched, and they're being commercialized. So the necessity to have a platform by a communication service provider that integrates all these components together is really important.
Yeah, so I think that's really accentuating the value of these communication platforms and the communication networks again, because I think it was realized pretty early on in the early days of the cloud. The cloud platforms were fantastic, but they were kind of redundant if they weren't connected and had the right kind of connectivity to move the data and the information around. So with that in mind, the scale that we know is coming, we all know the growth charts of data and the number of connections and the different types of connections out there. how can the industry continue to maintain the pace of transformation that we've seen in the past couple of years? And what are the key issues and challenges that need to be addressed, such as, do we need an open ecosystem? Do we need disaggregation, automation to make this happen? What does this industry need to do to capitalize on the goodwill, the greater perception, the technology platforms that have been developed, and everything that is there right at its fingertips? What really needs to happen next? So, Ahmed, if we can start with you, what needs to happen now to make sure this opportunity isn't missed?
Well, it's a great question. So we need to work on multiple fronts, actually. One of the key fronts is to transform our foundational elements of building telcos. And this goes into automation, disaggregation, cloudification, being data-driven, exposing APIs or using APIs even internally. But on the other hand, also that we need to think about the value add and what our customers need. What should we do? What should we pack as services? What exactly are the needs? Sometimes we focus on niche services, but actually there are mainstreams and a huge amount of services that are mainstream that can deliver the sustainable revenues and business models that we need. So we need to work on the front of our foundational building blocks of our telcos, how we build the telcos so far, and on the other hand, also deliver value to customers. So these two has to be essential, because the transformation itself doesn't deliver immediate value, but you need to leverage it to deliver value, and this is the key.
Okay. So, I mean, there's obviously an awful lot of talk about automation, and it's incredibly important. I mean, literally 5G is just faster mobile broadband without automation to help everything else fall into place. But it's not all about automated processes, and it's not all about software or even hardware. There's the people element as well, Francesca, isn't there? So, and you mentioned there's specialization in industry verticals. What needs to happen on the people side of this industry to capitalize on the opportunities now? Because we can see, if you're a traditional telco, you can see your partners out there in the hyperscaler community hiring people like crazy, not only from the telco industry, but from finance, from manufacturing, from all the major verticals, and building their teams. What do the BTs, DTs, Colts, Verizons of this world need to do in terms of their human resources?
Yeah, but basically we need to speed up the closure of the gap in the digital skills. Yeah, we need to upskills and really adopt, become software engineering, adopt the DevOps and agile methodology to be able to respond faster to customer demand, but also to build our own portal and orchestration that are going to be key to really, let's say, revolutionize the customer engagement model. But I also say another key important point for really that has to happen next is, I would say, collaboration, and collaboration, because it's about an ecosystem play, and it's about a value-led innovation. And I know this is already happening, because every service provider has announced innovative partner program going beyond simple technology synergy, technical synergy, but even looking at operational and the business synergy. But I fear this has been a bit slowed down by this frenemy culture. Is this partner a friend, or is this partner an enemy? How much data should I share? How much synergy should I build? And I think we should move towards a culture of co-opetition. Yes, we are competing in some ways, but there is really a great scope of collaboration, and we can get some mutual value, and we can augment the customer benefit through a joint value prop. And in order really to move from this, I think, bottleneck, one way is to really understand where do we want to stand in the value chain. Do we want to keep having an asset-centric business model, so remaining an infraco? Do we want to become a techco, where we upskill our people, we become a software company to be able to give that agility, flexibility that the enterprise customer need? Do we become a platform through API, building API with the IoT platform providers, with the cloud platform, with the connectivity provider as we go through SDN API federation, as we go towards a network of networks? Or do we want to come a ServCo where we have professional services, we insource the system integration capability, and we sell solution? I think if we know where do we want to stand, that we can move from a frenemy culture to a competition culture.
Okay. And so we've had another question in from the online audience, which is really about this topic here. And the question is, what are the new business models and strategies that the communication service providers need to take to be able to monetize what they now have in terms of the connectivity infrastructure and the platforms they're building? So is a lot of it about, there's obviously strategic thinking needs to go in this, decisions need to be made, and action needs to be taken. But are there any new kind of business models, any different type of approach that needs to be taken now? Oliver?
Yeah, we almost have, and I think we've all talked to it, sort of two theatres of operation, really. There is what you might call the bit pipe, or let's not say dumb pipe, let's say intelligent pipe.
Beautiful pipe.
Beautiful, fantastic pipe that's secure and reliable. And, there's that part of our business, all of our businesses, and it's vital, and it's growing. There's more of it. And we have to care for that. And of course, we need to transform it to make it more as a service, and all of the other things that any technology has to do is it moves from being a product to a service. But the new business models, the other theatre, is really working with the verticals, becoming more business-like, actually, in the way that we interact with customers. We've essentially had one product that's made the market. So bless our sales teams and our industry, we haven't really had to work that hard when we turned up. We just said, we've got it, the network, and everyone said, yep, we want it. And so we just said, well, there you go. We didn't really need to know why they were using it. We did know why they were using it, and we talked about it a lot, but we didn't have to try that hard. It was mostly about how many cities are you in, how many, what speeds do you want, what ports. And that still is true, but what we need to do now is turn up in a different environment, this collaboration mode, this experimental mode, and say, right, what is it you think you'd like to do, as all of our enterprise customers are investigating what they're going to be in the future. They don't know, really, necessarily. They all have great strategy papers like we do, but, frankly, a lot of them copy each other, they just have all the right buzzwords in like we do. And it's very hard to know what a pharmaceutical company of the future or a smart city really means, or any of these things. Obviously, they have a lot better idea than we do, and we need to listen to that and experiment with them, with the new entrants, with all of those partners. How do we make money from it? Well, we have an opportunity in that environment to actually ask for some money for being consultative, for providing technology, providing the trials, the scaling up, the security, the industrialization of what that might be, that we should charge for. When you come back to the first theatre, we tend to just provide that commodity with, are we giving it away for free? We're probably, every technology we put into the pipe, by and large, we're just stemming the decline, the secular decline in the price. So, I often say, I don't know if we've made much money from SD-WAN, but we've probably saved quite a lot of money that we might have lost if we hadn't done it, if you see what I mean. So, that's just the business model as it, for a commodity, if you like. In the new environment, it's a turning point. We have the right to say, well, we're going to charge for this now. And I think, whether it's a live orchestra being connected or many of these new ideas, people will pay for them.
Okay, that's obviously the hope that services put out there will deliver new revenue. Mark, are there new models that can be put into action and exploited from the platform and the technology side of things, or is the marketing team coming to you and saying, please enable this for us because we have an incredible opportunity right now that we never had before?
I think a colleague of mine, Chris Simcoe, pointed out to me the other day that CIOs didn't have to have a 4G strategy when 4G was launched. But today they feel they have to have a 5G strategy in a lot of domains. So the demand is there, and as Oliver says, maybe they don't quite know what they need to do with it yet. So, which says that it needs a more, or implies it needs a more partnership approach. The other thing is in a lot of enterprise domains, they have the IT technology and what they call the OT technology, the operational technology. And we know enough about IT and IT service provision and have partners there. But in the OT technology, the operational technology for manufacturing, for example, we do not have the skills and experience. And so we need, and the thing about monetization is there'll be no monetization unless we create value for these enterprises. We have to create some efficiency, and then that creates value for everyone. Now, we've all seen the research papers that say there's billions and billions of dollars, pounds, euros of value available, and we have to unlock it. Because we have to create the value in a domain that we don't have expertise. So we will have to partner with OT providers and convince them that the services that we can provide can unlock that value. And I feel that's where we are right now. We're at the stage where we're starting to partner from a platform point of view, and what needs to happen next, where you started off with. We have to build out our platform, which for us is execute on our plan, and we're transforming our infrastructure. So, in fact, the level of change that's going through our technology stack at the moment is unprecedented, and we're replacing copper for most of the country by 2026. That's been there for 100 years. We're doing a full technology refresh for our radio access network, rolling out 5G to every site as we go, to every band, so that by 2028 we'll be across the whole country. And then you come up a layer to the core, and then the core is all moving into software. So that's going to improve our time to market, will allow us to expose functions from the network to partners directly. And we're also doing a huge transformation in our IT domain on top of that. So from a platform point of view, the approach we're taking is to build APIs at each layer of our platform so we can expose capabilities where we need to from each layer, either directly from the access or from the core with core network functions like the network exposure function, or from our IT stack. But yes, we have to create value in order to gain and monetize any of the services, new services.
Okay. Francis, you're an analyst now, but you have worked in the telecom software sector, so you've seen the transition of how these things have changed. Mark was talking there about the greater use of APIs, exposing functions. Is there, and this has been talked about for a very long time, but it's now happening. And there's open APIs and there's APIs, two very different things as well. But is this going to enable the kind of the collaboration and the ability to bring in the third parties, the specialists that will enable the new business opportunities? Is this the melting pot that's going to make the difference, or is that still all on PowerPoint?
Yeah, I think I'm going to say APIs are extremely important. Our ability, I said earlier, if we can expose what we do internally, the more the better. Sadly, I think one of our challenges is it's not just about APIs. We just need to see the recent demise of Mobile Edge X, for example, in terms of yet one more API initiative from Telco, which has gone by the wayside, all the way back to sort of Bondi APIs on a decade ago. So it's not just about the API, and I think one of the things we need to understand as an industry is understand our customers better. We talk about our customers need network slicing, our customers need low latency, our customers need 5G standalone core. Our customers don't need that. We talk about private networks as a good example. A private network is simply an enterprise's network. we need to get that kind of mentality. And what is our value to a private network? How do we expose the value of a network slice to the other, that we understand the need? You know, I come back to the low latency one because it's a slight bugbear with me, is that you can always solve low latency by simply putting compute on the end device. Okay, and in a lot of cases, that's at the moment is easier than going to all the trouble of putting it on or waiting for a MEC device. So at the moment, we need to understand how do we make it valuable to a customer to put something on an edge device as opposed to for them to build it in their own network. Because at the end of the day, they are just computers and storage. It's just a different location for them and a different management. How can we propose, you know, lower operational costs for it, higher security, higher resilience, lower number of operational people that you need to put into a particular site? It's getting that kind of idea and starting to talk in terms of their business problem, not our technology or the latest specific technology that's coming through. If we can get that right, I think then go ahead, eat as much of our APIs as possible. But an API is only as good as how much it is used.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. So it sounds a little bit like...
I've got quite a good example here. It's just reminded me of, Francis, that there's an opportunity with some enterprises where we can help them close their remote offices. So they have remote offices. This was in a discussion with a mining customer. They have a remote office at the mine. They want to automate the mine, but the control systems are basically the remote office today. If we host their application in the network, then their central office can control the mine from the edge application, and they can close their remote offices. And that's the value we unlock. It's like, get rid of the building, less people, and manage it centrally. It's just one example. But we're in the business of closing buildings, is kind of the approach that we need to take.
Yes, that's the stark realization of it, but if that's what the customer needs and what the customer wants, then I guess that's the...
Or conversely, opening buildings as well. So.
Well, there's that as well.
Different buildings.
So
different buildings.
We're getting towards the end of the time here, but I just want to check and see, is there anybody in the audience that's got a question that they're desperate to ask one of our panelists before we close the session? Yes, I see a hand up towards the back there. If you could... tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your question is, please.
Oh, it's Steve Hately from Digital Route. Just a question, really. You know, are CSPs prepared to consider a change in the way that they issue RFPs to vendors to be more partnership themed as opposed to best product out there to be, you know, who is the best vendor for collaboration? And that's the way that the RFPs would be rewritten and rephrased.
Okay, so I think this is a topic that's going to crop up in another session as well. But very quickly, we'll take a couple of comments from the panel here. So will we see a change in the nature of the relationship between the network operators and the vendors in terms of RFPs and sourcing and procurement? Does anybody want to
I'll just start. I'm happy to start. I think this is already happening. We don't have a vendors, a supplier service provider relationship anymore. It's more like a partnership where we do some co-R&D together. So, for example, one of our vendors for the AI platform, Accidian, for self-optimizing our networks, they open up their platform, they pre-prod environment to our data scientists to try and experiment some new AI use case within the intelligent operation. So I think this is happening. We are moving towards more of a collaborative approach with our vendor ecosystem.
Okay, so Steve, it's starting to happen. Ahmed, did you want to?
No, I'll just confirm the same. I think we're moving into different ways of cooperating with suppliers, with partnerships, with also the traditional RFPs. All of that is happening, but depends on the area and the focus and the uniqueness of the partner when it comes to innovation.
Okay.
Just want to quickly add, though, that it all depends on whether the vendors are directly competing and talking to our customers outside of our engagement with our customers. So, you know, like any of the players in this ecosystem, you know, we're all friends and and we have to compete as well. So, you know, that needs to net out, and we need to see how that's going to, you know, there's room for some of us, let's say, not all of us.
Okay. So I'm getting some flashing messages here on my screen that says, you must stop now, Ray. So I'm going to do that, but there is a last thing that we need to do here, because we have been running the poll during the course of this session on the website, and the online audience has been voting. So let's reveal the results so far. Now, these results are going to look somewhat strange, because the first thing you're going to say is, but hang on a minute, that doesn't add up to 100%. Remember that.
Wow.
Remember, we're asking people to vote here for all of the options that they think are appropriate. So the percentage sign here is the percentage of people who have voted for each of these options. So a very quick look here. So what will prevent telcos from building on the progress they've made during the past 2 years? The top answer, and it's actually changing in real time there as people vote, the top answer here is the inability to compete with cloud providers for enterprise business. And that's going to really line up a great conversation we have a little bit later on. So 48% of people who have voted have taken that option as something that will prevent the telcos from building on what they've done. I think that the next highest after that is with 41%, ill-defined services or cloud strategy. So a little bit of a wake-up call there for the network operators. But at the low end of the scale, let's pick that out as well. Poor marketing is not seen as something that's going to hold anybody back. So for the marketers in the room, that's a very positive thing, I guess. So thanks very much for voting. You can still vote. This poll is still open. And, you know, we'll be taking the results of this poll and obviously sharing them on TelecomTV after the event. But at this point, we need to leave it there. We now have a break. Whether this break is the full time allocated, you'll find out when somebody comes and starts ushering you back into the room. But refreshments are out in the foyer. We've got the coffee cart at the back. And don't forget the charity pinball tournament that's at the back. That is now open and ready for anybody who wants to listen to Led Zeppelin at 10:45 in the morning on the second machine along. So go and see Neil from BT. Sign up. Remember, this is a charity pinball event, so prepare to get the digital checkbook out so you can make a donation and see if you can topple Neil McRae off the top of the leaders board. So see you back here at around 11:20, I think, for our next session, which is Clouds on the Horizon. So please, a big hand for our guests.